We have to start with what just happened over the past 62 minutes on The View. And it's not even one of my wacky View clips for you where we just make fun of Sunny or Joy. I mean, we love those. But this is like legit Joe Biden, who's on, well, you guys will tell me what he's doing here. And I'll tell you what Mark Halperin says. He's on some sort of a rehabilitation tour. Well, okay. Anyway, he goes on to The View, and it wasn't rehabilitative at all.
What do you get when you mix Joe Biden navigating another teleprompter hiccup with The View hosts acting like everything's fine? A full-on media storm, and Megyn Kelly, she showed up with verbal fireworks. Buckle up, because today we're diving into the roast fest where Megyn doesn't just respond, she levels the whole room. From Biden's missteps to Joy Bihar's on-air moments, this was the broadcast chaos you didn't know you needed. And wait till you hear who she took aim at first.
Notice that Trump can't stop talking about it. He's obsessed with you. As of late April, he had mentioned you and your family and your administration at least 580 times. We're talking shrink land now, because, you know, when you're obsessed with somebody, you have to look in yourself and say, what is going on here? And at his Trump's cabinet meeting last week, your name was invoked 52 times, and he blamed you for the economic mess that his tariffs are causing. Why is he so fixated on you and blaming you for everything?
I beat him.
It started like any other Tuesday. Birds chirping, coffee brewing, and somewhere, Whoopi Goldberg was once again making headlines for her latest hot take. Then came Joe Biden, the man, the moment, and the unpredictable teleprompter challenge. Naturally, the View panel jumped in, surrounded by studio plants and contagious laughter, trying to smooth it all over like it wasn't unfolding live in front of millions. The whole scene felt like watching a sitcom without a script. Chaotic, loud, and unforgettable.
There's a little bit more. Speaking of those around him who covered up his infirmity, or at least that's where my mind went. Dr. Jill was there too, and as usual, came to the rescue. Watch SOT 38.
What is your response to these allegations, or are these sources wrong?
They are wrong. There's nothing to sustain that, number one. Number two, you know, think
This
of
is about the books.
What we're left with. We're left with a circumstance where we had an insurrection when I started.
The people who wrote those books were not in the White House with us, and they didn't see how hard Joe worked every single day. Joe worked really hard. I think he was a great president.
She says none of these people writing the books worked for us. Well, one of the first to have his book hit interviewed Ron Klain, who was Joe Biden's chief of staff for almost all of his presidency. And he went on the record saying that Biden thought he was president of NATO. Where was that follow-up, ladies of The View? I must have...
Now picture this. Biden steps onto the set like a slightly lost grandparent who wandered into a school assembly, while the hosts of The View burst into applause so staged, you could almost hear their contracts whispering, just smile and clap. It was meant to be a heartfelt presidential moment. What viewers got instead was a mashup of community theater and daytime talk show denial, with enough awkward energy to charge Joy Bihar's curling iron.
He could barely spit it out.
And he threw that one out there too. My goodness.
He and Obama are two peas in a pod on this. Sexism and racism, if you didn't vote for her. That's obviously what she thinks too. But the nerve of this guy of all people to come out and say that's why she lost.
Yeah, I mean, here's the deal, Megyn. You know they're putting him out there to provide proof of life because a lot of people are wondering, they hadn't seen him in a while. But at some point in every person's life, you go from rehab to palliative care. And he is definitely in the palliative care category.
Don't worry, America's favorite I'm not mad, just deeply unimpressed media critic Megyn Kelly saw the glittery chaos unfold and had plenty to say. In true Megyn fashion, she didn't just review the episode, she dismantled it. She took aim at the staging, the script, and the over-polished delivery with the precision of someone who's had enough of the noise. The result? A scorching breakdown that left no cue card standing.
They asked him about that. They asked him about that moment. Watch this, SOT 36.
When the vice president was here, I asked her if she would have done something differently than your administration over the past 4 years. And because of all the successes that your administration had, I think her response was, there is not a thing that comes to mind. Now, that answer was weaponized against her. And there has been some reporting that you encouraged her.
Because let's be honest, watching The View manage a Joe Biden segment is like asking a team of distracted squirrels to direct a Broadway play. The expectations are already rock bottom, and somehow they still manage to trip. Every nod, every giggle, every carefully worded question tossed at Biden like a beach ball at a concert, it all had the unmistakable shimmer of effort trying way too hard to look effortless.
Did that clear it up for you?
I mean,
You have clarity on it now?
that gerbil is having a hard time spinning the wheel. That is about as torturous as I've ever seen.
It was torturous, and on Sunny's part too. There, like
Yes.
she is trying to hand this off to Biden, and hopefully he can take it from there, right? Like okay, she wants to straight face tell us that what the question was, like what sort of wins would you have changed? Like that's an actual question you would ask a person. It doesn't make any logical sense.
She didn't just critique it, she slow-cooked it in sharp analysis, plated it with sarcasm, and delivered a serving of how is this still happening. Megyn Kelly didn't need cue cards or a glam squad hyping her up. She came ready with facts and the rare ability to connect the dots. Watching her unpack the episode was like watching someone breeze through a puzzle while others struggle with the box. She exposed The View's overly rehearsed moment with the finesse of a surgeon and the enthusiasm of someone who knew it was all smoke and mirrors. They tried to spin Biden's appearance like a win, the same way a child insists a finger painting belongs in a museum. But Megyn saw past the sparkle and called it what it was: manufactured hype with a studio full of cheerleaders. She didn't just push back. She lit up the whole moment like it was made for viral commentary. And through it all, Megyn stood firm, not just physically, but as a calm voice in a storm of TV noise.
What the hell was he talking about, by the way? He was like, I've never seen such an effective, like, misogynistic campaign. What the hell? Like, that's actually a first take. I mean, I know that Democrats say, well, it's because the country is misogynistic and racist and all those things. But, like, he's pointing the finger basically at the Trump campaign, saying that they had, like, this. Well, I mean, if you go back to, like, the ad slate of the messaging matrix that the Trump administration put together in the course of that campaign, it was immigration, it was crime, it was the horrible economy. I mean, none of these things are gender specific.
Because here's the truth. The View didn't exactly challenge Joe Biden. They walked him through it. They offered him questions so safe they could have been printed on oatmeal packaging and applauded every time he finished a sentence. It felt less like journalism and more like a scripted pep rally. And Megyn? She showed up like she was ready for round one in a championship bout against denial. Her commentary wasn't just sharp. It was surgical, relentless, and aimed straight at the overly polished narrative. She compared the whole scene to a family pretending Thanksgiving dinner went great, even after the oven caught fire. What happened on that stage wasn't a news interview. It was more like a scripted feel-good segment written by people trying to wish an ideal version of events into existence. Megyn saw through it, and she called it exactly that. The entire setup looked more like a rehearsal for a show where everyone agrees not to talk about the obvious. And that's exactly what she refused to ignore.
So insane the way that she's like beyond effusive of being like, so here's the thing. Because of your record of tremendous successes, dear leader. Like, what? Are you asking him a question?
Like, Joe Biden, tell us your greatest weakness.
And you know what? You know what's so amazing?
You know?
What's so amazing about it, you guys, is that, so here she's like, I am not going to make the same mistake twice. You know, I already fucked up Kamala Harris's run for the office. And I am not going to do anything to undermine this guy. So I'm just going to give him the answer in the question. Like, you know, and so she declined to distinguish any of her policies from all the ones that you did so successfully. What's your reaction to that? Right? So she's trying to give him the softball like that. And then he has no idea what she...
And what did Megyn do with all this? She took it apart like a judge on a reality show watching someone try to bake using guesswork and glitter. She broke down the fake optimism, the rehearsed laughter, and the surprised reactions when Biden forgot who he was speaking to. Then she held up the pieces like a cautionary tale. The best part, Megyn didn't even look mad. She was calm, precise. The the way someone would explain why a bridge collapsed while holding the blueprint. Her commentary cut through the segment's polished surface like a knife through soft bread, and she didn't stop there. She challenged the foundation of the show itself, because at this point, The View feels less like a panel and more like a group fantasy, fueled by recycled talking points and endless self-praise. Each episode plays like a masterclass in contradictions, where facts go in and spin comes out. Megyn had zero patience for it. She pointed out the obvious: when you bring on a former president who struggles with clarity and still try to treat it like a historical speech, that's not journalism, that's fiction. And not the creative kind. More like something scribbled down during a brainstorm session that skipped the logic part.
For a job as a cameraman, but
we are beyond happy to have you here today for a lot of different reasons. But my question is, how are you? How you doing?
I'm well. The family's well, thank God. Things are moving along, and we're getting squared away, trying to figure out what the most significant and consequential role I can play consistent with what I've done in the past. I'm writing up.
And it wasn't just Biden's delivery Megyn took apart. It was the hosts themselves. Whoopi Goldberg, now operating more like a vessel for selective optimism, nodded through Biden's rough patches like she was hearing top-secret wisdom through a fuzzy headset. Megyn compared the whole thing to a motivational seminar run by a broken robot, and just when it seemed like it couldn't drift further into performance territory, in came Sunny, whose facial expressions danced between thoughtful observer and someone rewatching a dull lecture. Megyn joked that Sunny's take on journalism felt like it was lifted from a motivational calendar that had gone through a spin cycle. The verbal gymnastics Sunny pulled to smooth over Biden's mixed messages were so intense, you half expected a podium and a medal ceremony. Then there was Alyssa, the professional profile come to life, nodding as if she were narrating the internal monologue of a smart home device. Megyn labeled it for what it was: a group chat brought to life, with Alyssa cast as the new hire still memorizing names. Her points hit the conversation like gentle reminders, polite, present, and quickly forgotten. But Megyn wasn't just annoyed. She was mesmerized. It was like watching a behind-the-scenes docuseries on reality distortion, only with more makeup and fewer disclaimers. She pointed out that if avoiding political missteps were a competition, The View panel would be undefeated across all platforms, maybe even the halftime show. The effort spent reframing every long pause or misstep could have lit up an entire city block. And then came the outfits. Megyn didn't hold back. She noted the group looked like they'd gotten ready backstage at a themed party where the only rule was dress like the moment matters. One outfit apparently looked like it came from a travel show's lost and found bin. There was even a clever dig about how their style choices resembled curated mood boards from people convinced glitter equals personality. Megyn even took a moment to comment on the table itself. Yes, the table. She quipped it looked less like a hosting setup and more like a decision panel getting ready to vote on which version of optimism they'd all wear next week.
Hot mess that they air in the mornings, called The View, had to issue not one, not two, not three, but 4 corrections, legal corrections, 4 legal notes. We only have 3 of them on camera. Not to mention what they did at that debate, where once again, they tried to fact check only one side, and then when their fact checks got fact checked, they cowered. They cowered in fear. I mean, this is a pattern.
The stage arrangement hinted at diplomacy, but the conversation felt more like an infomercial for a very confused political message. And Megyn, she was loving every second. She didn't just critique The View, she conducted a full breakdown with flair and sarcasm. Every remark came with a sprinkle of disbelief, as if she couldn't wrap her head around how this show still airs without being labeled satire. Just when it felt like she was done, Megyn pushed the sarcasm up another level and dove straight into the heart of the bizarre. She zeroed in on the strange world The View seems to live in, a place where applause is scripted before the debate starts, and facts only matter if they've been wrapped in emotion and sealed with a teardrop from Joy Behar. It's a realm where volume equals correctness and thoughtful analysis is left behind along with logic and self-awareness. Megyn, who thrives in chaos, unpacked the entire scene like it was a daytime drama pretending to be journalism. She pointed out that The View has created an echo chamber so tight it might as well orbit the Earth. Dissent isn't just frowned upon, it's treated like a scandal in progress.
Get this little lecture from, forgive me, those bitches over at The View.
I'm a Christian girl. When something like this happens to you, like this assassination attempt, and you say something like God was watching me, that is a very unchristian thing to say because it's very narcissistic. Well, God was watching me and not watching them. There's something very disturbing.
God should have pulled the plug on that mic yesterday.
That's obnoxious. I don't know what church she goes to. That is how people of faith talk, and the intimation is never, he was looking out for me, but not those monsters. It's no.
11. Rewritten. Try asking a complex question or suggesting a new angle, and you'll be ushered out faster than you can say technical difficulty. Megyn compared the panel to a group of backup dancers hoping for spotlight time, complete with synchronized reactions and perfectly timed expressions of shock. Their dialogue, a playlist of familiar phrases and polished responses layered over quiet nods of self-congratulation. It's not news, it's a performance about emotion dressed up as debate. In Megyn's view, watching The View tackle tough political subjects is like watching toddlers try to solve a puzzle using stickers and glitter. It's well-intentioned, chaotic, and leaves you questioning your sanity. But what made Megyn's commentary shine wasn't just the critique. It was how precisely she delivered it, with the calm poise of someone giving a keynote at a roast. Because what Megyn really exposed wasn't just one questionable moment, it was the ongoing saga that The View has become. A place where common sense fades out, complexity is flattened into one-liners, and opinions are rated by the volume of the claps, not the strength of the ideas. And Megyn? She didn't just deliver feedback. She showed up with purpose, precision, and a list of contradictions too obvious to ignore. When the dust settled, The View's loyal fans clutched their pearls, stunned anyone would dare challenge the show's dynamic. But the rest of us, we laughed. We laughed because someone finally said out loud what many have been thinking. The View feels less like a show and more like a support circle for people who skim headlines and call it research. Megyn Kelly, champion of clarity over chaos, didn't just critique it, she cleaned house, wiped off the glitter, and left a big flashing sign that said, "Raise the bar." So next time Biden appears on a talk show and the hosts break into a carefully choreographed celebration, remember, somewhere, Megyn is sharpening her commentary, ready to call it like it is. And honestly,